This is Mac OS Ken.
Trump targets Apple with a tariff, trade-in values for iPhone go up, and a dignified Memorial Day message from Tim Cook. It is Tuesday, the 27th of May, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. All I can say about the president's latest randy-kazoo is at least it happened over the weekend. Well, for me it did anyway. Engadget ran a piece last Friday saying President Trump had escalated pressure on Apple, ostensibly to get the Cupertino company to make iPhones for the USA in the USA. If not, President Tariff said he would apply Trump's. I'm sorry, the other way around. Posting on his own personal hell site, the President of the United States said, "I have long informed Tim Cook of Apple that I expect their iPhones that will be sold in the United States of America will be manufactured and built in the United States, not India or any place else. If that is not the case, a tariff of at least 25% must be paid by Apple to the U.S. Thank you for your attention to this matter." If you're not following me on Mastodon, I don't blame you, though you did miss me posting on Friday. I hereby pledge that if Tim Cook gives me $1 million for my first day of work party, I will also mercilessly threaten his business. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Here's the thing. A CNBC piece from mid-April had B of A analyst Wamsi Mohan saying that labor alone for iPhones made in the USA would drive up costs by 25%. The same piece had Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives guesstimating the cost of an iPhone made in the States coming in at roughly $3,500. Perhaps with figures like those in mind, TF International analyst Ming-Chi hit the traditional hell site over the weekend, saying the 25% tariff is cheap by comparison. In terms of profitability, posted the analyst, it is way better for Apple to take the hit of a 25% tariff on iPhones sold in the US market than to move iPhone assembly lines back to the US. Dude, don't say back. They were never in the US. He followed that post with another, adding a bit of color, quoting that, "The specific tariff percentage Trump proposes on iPhones isn't the main concern. The bigger issue is that this is Trump's second recent pointed comment targeting Apple, a warning sign Apple can't ignore. Apple's top priority in negotiations with Trump should be finding ways to avoid, delay, or prevent higher iPhone tariffs. For example, says Ming-Chi, Apple could adjust its DEI policies to secure Trump's temporary commitment to hold off on targeting them." Yeah, because appeasement always works. Anyway, the way Ming-Chi sees it, iPhone production is not coming to the US in the next 3 2/3 years. Quoting the rest of his second post, "Moving all iPhone assembly for US models back to the US before Trump's term ends is unrealistic, and Trump also opposes Apple producing iPhone US models in India. So even if Apple secures a temporary deal with Trump to avoid iPhone tariffs this time, there's no guarantee they won't face repeated tariff threats during his term." Well, maybe if they try appeasing him, though. California Attorney General Rob Bonta isn't really into the appeasement idea. A piece from Apple Insider says the AG from CA said he would consider taking the Trump administration to court over the issue when the issue was Apple-specific. Because it's not just about Apple anymore, but we'll get to that. On Apple and the White House, California's Attorney General was quoted as saying, "We're proud of the California companies and we want to make sure that their rights are not violated, especially by the President of the United States, which is not something that you would normally have to protect against." Well, Maybe Tim Cook shouldn't have hurt Trump's feelings. Remember a couple of weeks ago when the president was touring the Middle East, talking about his displeasure with Apple building iPhone in China and India and not in the US? That was the trip that had Trump saying of Cook, "I had a little problem with Tim yesterday. I said to him, Tim, you're my friend. You're coming here with $500 billion, but now you're building all over India. I don't want you building in India. And I said to Tim, we've treated you really good. We put up with all the plants that you've built in China for years. Now you got to build for us. We're not interested in you building in India. India can take care of themselves. We want you to build here." There was another comment he made on that trip that I read but didn't bring here because, believe it or not, I really don't like talking about the man and don't want to waste your time on every word he says. Turns out, I might have left out the most important thing. As part of his Middle East trip, the Times of India said President Trump spoke at a U.S. Saudi investment forum. Referring to the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, the quote I saw a few times had the president saying, "I see my friend is here, Jensen. Tim Cook isn't here, but you are." Around the time of the trip, CNBC's Steve Kovach was quoted as saying, "For some reason, Tim Cook is living rent-free in the president's head." In retrospect, we could have seen this coming. 9 to 5 Mac highlights a piece from the New York Times that says Friday's 25% tariff tantrum was likely payback for Tim Cook skipping Trump's recent Middle East trip. According to Apple Insider, from NVIDIA's Jensen Huang to OpenAI's Sam Altman, the president's entourage read like a Silicon Valley star lineup. But one high-profile exec was missing, Apple CEO Tim Cook, who had been invited but declined. And according to the Times, that decision stuck with Trump throughout the trip. After recounting Friday's tariff threat, Apple Insider said Tim and his allies have been pushing for Apple to bring iPhone manufacturing stateside, but Friday's threat felt less like a strategic move and more like a targeted punishment. Apple had just narrowly avoided a 145% China-related tariff in April, and now it's facing a new one. Maybe it was people saying, "Dude, why are you picking on Apple?" that gave Trump well, I'm not going to say a change of heart. Maybe it was people noticing that he was singling out Apple that caused a change in direction from the president. Later in the day on Friday, Engadget cited a Bloomberg report that had Trump broadening the tariff scope. Responding to questions from reporters about his iPhone announcement, the president said, "It would be also Samsung and anybody that makes that product, otherwise it wouldn't be fair, so anybody that makes that product, and that'll start on, I guess, the end of June." Thought out, considered, well-reasoned. It'll be interesting to see what happens on, I guess, the end of June. Apple has raised the maximum value of trade-ins for iPhones for a limited time. A Mac Rumors post says the temporary increases are good for Australia, Canada, China, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the UK, and the US. They run all the way back from iPhone 8 through the relatively recent iPhone 15 Pro Max. Maximum trade-in values are up by $5 per unit to $20 per unit depending. Not huge, but maybe enough to push over the fence someone who is currently sitting on it. The increases are expected to be in place through the 18th of June. iPhone in the EU has another third-party contactless payment option. According to a piece from Mac Rumors, the Curve Pay app from British fintech Curve allows users to make tap-to-pay purchases without using Apple Pay or the Wallet app, following PayPal's debut of similar functionality in Germany earlier this month. That's possible thanks to Digital Markets Act changes that required Apple to open its NFC chip to third-party developers. And finally today, Apple CEO Tim Cook marked Memorial Day with a simple, dignified message. Still posting on the Hill site for some reason, a piece from Mac Rumors had the CEO saying, "We are grateful for all those who fought for our freedom. On Memorial Day, we reflect on the courage and selflessness of the heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country." macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handle by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOSKen at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.